Welcome back, everyone. I'm pleased now to introduce you to Phil Odence from the Black Duck Audit team at Synopsys. Phil's been a longtime partner of the Transaction Advisory Institute and a friend, and really pleased to get him more connected with everyone. To start, Phil, would you introduce yourself and describe the work that you do in the software due diligence process?
Yeah, certainly. Happy to do it. I tend to think top down. I'll start with Synopsys. We're part of Synopsys, the 15th biggest software company in the world that many people haven't heard of because we're quite specialized in building tools for semiconductor development. But I'm part of an organization that provides software and services around software integrity, helping people to build software. And my particular piece of that is a group that does software due diligence advisory services. We're very well known for doing open source audits. I venture to guess many people in this audience have heard of us for that, but we actually have a portfolio of services that touch all aspects of software due diligence. And we apply those in 500 or 600 M&A transactions every year. First of all, the deals where we tend to be involved are what I would call technology deals, meaning the software is really at the center of the deal. It's a big part of the valuation of the target company, and so that's a software company or a SaaS company or a systems company. Today could be an automobile company. You asked the question in an interesting way. It's why do people call us? And I can definitively say that's for concern with open source license compliance, but that's really more reflective of the way they think about us rather than the issues that are of interest. And certainly cybersecurity is a big one. You can see articles all the time in the trade press saying that software security is a bigger issue today in M&A diligence. But there are other concerns as well. What's the quality of the software? How well is it built? How well is it architected? Is it maintainable and scalable over time? So all of these concerns, I'm not sure I'd say are equally weighted, but they all are significant in terms of what we would call a technology transaction. Well, I mean, certainly the pandemic has been the story of the last year. And if we turn the clock back to 12 months ago, things were pretty dismal. The volume of transactions had dropped off substantially, was continuing to drop and stayed there into the summer. And I think that was largely reflective of uncertainty across a number of dimensions, at least one of which is how do we do due diligence in this world? But no, it didn't come to a full halt. Deals that were underway, were completed. New deals that were starting up did move forward. And I think everybody, we've all adapted to a different way of working. And so I think what we've seen with due diligence is certainly the obvious is a shift to talking to people over Zoom rather than face to face. But with that comes something is lost, and that you don't have those side conversations at the coffee machine or over dinner at night. You don't get the walk around. You don't get to feel the vibe of the development organization as you, the CTO, maybe get the tour. And so I think companies have started to rely more on objective measures and some of the kind of work that we do looking at the code. And so, a real simple way to say it is you could talk to the VP of engineering about the software development process and how quality is ensured and what they're, how they're managing open source and what they do to build security into the software. But where the rubber really meets the road is the software. And so I think companies have seen that since they can't get that subjective feeling, they're going to rely more on the what comes out of the analytics of the software along all those dimensions. And I think, some of that may stick over time, that people understand that, they can get fooled by their subjective impressions, and objectively looking at what's in the software is certainly at least a great compliment to what they're sensing from talking to the important people in the target organization. Well, I think, I talked a little bit about kind of inferring, how well the software has been developed from the software. Mostly, probably if you talk to, those of your members who've worked with us, they're probably coming from a perspective of, we want to make sure there's no big surprises in the code, that there's no big problems we don't know about. And there is an expectation of, there is not an expectation, I should, maybe a better way to say it, of perfection. There is an expectation that a smaller company is going to have some issues along all the dimensions we've talked about. Acquirers want to know that there are no big surprises, which don't necessarily kill the deal, but would enter into the terms or at least the planning going forward. And so I think the other benefits beyond surprises or confirming that there are no surprises are learning valuable information around the planning of the integration going forward. I think most companies figure there will be some amount of energy that's going to need to go into getting the software up to snuff, up to the probably higher corporate standards of a larger company that's acquiring the smaller company, versus what the smaller company might have been sort of forced to be, settling for. And that's in terms of the quality of the software, how, maybe attitudes towards open source risk, security issues and such. And so, having that knowledge and being able to quantify how much work there's going to be just helps to build a better business case that won't be blown by unexpected work and technical debt post-close. Well, it's certainly not unusual to find unknowns, and that's a bit the norm. I guess one story does come to mind, and the background is when we do one of these audits, we use very sophisticated tools, but also highly expert auditors in each of these areas I talked about, be it security or quality or open source. But this is around open source, and we'll usually, it's not unusual for us to find a lot of open source. Our stats are that these days it's not unusual for a code base to be half open source. So finding some open source is not the surprise. But I guess the big surprise was one day, first day of an audit that we probably planned to spend a week on, and finished it in about half a day. And the reason was because we found that 100% of the code in the code base was open source, and not just that, it was all one open source project. So there was clearly something screwy going on. So we immediately got back to the client. They rounded up the target. We had the discussion, and what we had uncovered was the fact that an unscrupulous, disgruntled former employee of the target had one fine day walked out the door with all of the software of the company and put it up on GitHub in a repository under an open source license. So big issue, and I think I can safely say the biggest surprise that's ever turned up in one of our audits, and certainly was impactful to the deal.